how do we price rentals? Let me explain. What's up? This is Ed with Capstone Realty Professionals. Hey, this week I wanted to fill you in on Capstone Weekly Update number 122. I sat here with Evan and we talked about where we list, how it's listed. But what I didn't get into was formulating the price and how we come up with those terms. Lately, we've had newer investors contact us and want to find out, okay, if they were to rent their property, what are they going to get in rents and that type of thing. And often, I think people that are contacting us for the first time think that I have more control over that than we do. Now, let me be clear. Our marketing is dialed. Like, there are certain things that we do that work really, really well. And what that helps us do is it helps us push the price. It helps us know that the marketing is working well, so we don't have to worry about that piece of it. If you and I, you the owner, and myself, the property manager, has to have a hard conversation about your listing not moving, I don't want it to have anything to do with the fact that the marketing sucks or the pictures are bad or whatever it is. So we do our best to keep it super, super, super consistent. That consistency helps us out a lot. And now with pricing, it's also helpful. So at different stages, people on the team run comps and they all do it a very similar way. But let me kind of talk through like how we do that. To set the price, again, if you're a new client and you contact me, the last thing I'm going to do is base the price on how much you need to make, right? First and foremost. I learned that the hard way when I first got into real estate investing, and I thought that it had to do with how much money I was paying out of pocket a month, not necessarily looking at the supply, demand, and really formulating a number, a value based on what's really happening at this point in the market. We can't base it on what your neighbor got. We can't base it on what you think it's worth. Because, hey, at the end of the day, you ask me if my house is great, I'm going to tell you it's the best house on the block. Is it? I don't know. My neighbors might not think so, but I do, right? And that's really what it comes down to, right? My house is the best. It's always going to be the best, and it's hard to argue with that. Okay, so specifics of rentals. How do we price them? The first thing I do, I use a service called Rent-O-Meter. We pay for it, and the reason why I pay for it is because it gives me a few other tips and things that I can do, including putting reports together. So when you ask us for a price, if you were to ask me, I use this Rent-O-Meter, I put it together. Usually I won't send it because the numbers are pretty much in line with what I do with the Rent-O-Meter is I am now going to prove or disprove that number using comps and metrics off of the MLS. So from Rent-O-Meter, I come up with a baseline. That gives me this little window of how much does it say we're supposed to get. It's similar to Zillow. That being said, we then sometimes will look at Zillow just to get an idea of how much volatility there is in the market in that particular area. Because Zillow, if there's a market that's very consistent in Zillow, you'll see that the numbers are going to be right in line with a Rent-O-Meter. However, if you're living downtown or the houses are very different, like in certain zip codes, the houses are older and they're not similar at all. One house might rent for this value up here. The next one might rent for this one down here. So it makes those algorithms for both of those services, both Rent-O-Meter and Zillow, a little harder to predict what the value is going to be. So for those, we just kind of use that as a baseline and go, all right, if a tenant is shopping, they're looking at Zillow, this is the number they're going to see from this estimate. From there, we'll go into the MLS. And with the MLS, arguably that's the best information for rentals. It's not the most thorough. Again, we've talked about this before. We don't put a lot of stuff on the MLS unless we have to, but when you do, it's exceptionally accurate. Usually they're the rentals that are harder to rent, or they're at a higher price point, so you need more coverage, more marketing and exposure that way. So after we're running that MLS, we're looking at we're looking at the comps in a particular area. We'll pull out the comparable properties, pull out like a mile from the subject property. We'll look at, of course, like square footage. We're looking at distance. If it's in an area that is very, similar to others, we'll do a plus minus 200 square feet up and down, see what that looks like. If it's a single family, like single family home versus condo, we'll include those. If it's, a single story home versus a 2 or 3 story home, we'll put that in there too, because that's always important. Another thing that's important is garages. Garages are sometimes an anomaly, like with the values. What isn't is usually a pool. Pool usually gets you like $100-$150 more a month tops. So it doesn't matter whether or not we're running comps with pools, because I can just add that value into there later. And really, in my opinion, pools are a wash. You're spending $100 a month for pool maintenance, and then at the end of the day, you're getting $100-$150 more a month in rents. So it's kind of a wash. Then we're looking at a couple of things. And if you've gotten comps from me recently, what I've started to do with this new template, this new service we're using in our new CRM, which I'm super excited about, I put a template together that says this. It sends you the Rent-O-Meter as an attachment. It's going to send you our information, our MLS like search information, the search that we used. So you'll be able to open it up, look at the pictures of the properties that we're using as comparable properties. You'll be able to open them up like as if somebody that was searching for homes. You'll see, what the insides look like. You'll see what the details of the property were. But then, what I provide, what I think is the best that we provide, is it's a statistical market analysis based on those properties, and it breaks it down from. We've got the time on market, which is super important, because if a property sat on there for 90 days, it's different than if something just sat on there for 9. It shows you the original list price. So what did that property originally list for? What was it listed for when it actually went off the market, when it rented? And then what was that rental rate? So you've got those 3 numbers there that really paint a really cool picture, not only as to what did that property do, but what's the market doing, right? And that to me is the most important thing. I'm looking at this and going, all right, if we're to put this house on the market right now and it's all trending down based on the statistical market analysis, we got to be aware of that. And it's like, if we're going to be chasing the market down, or if we're going to be looking at it differently, like those numbers are, in my opinion, the most important thing that we can provide you. Even though the data might be a little limited because there's not a ton of rentals on the MLS in the grand scheme of things, it's helpful. It's in my opinion, again, like if I'm pricing my properties, like I want to know what those numbers are, because that's what helps me in making that decision. In addition, and for the most part, the information that we're giving you is based on this. That's when you ask us what the pricing should be. These are the things that we're doing to get to those numbers. The other piece that I always look at is who was it that rented the property? Like, who was the listing agent on the property, and who was the one who actually filled it? Sometimes you'll find that the days on market can be skewed because it could be one company that is throwing it on the MLS, and they're not really allowing other companies to fill those houses. They're just putting it out there for exposure. So you'll see that the listing agent actually was the one who filled it. And you see that a lot. And oftentimes it's like you see that on some properties that have sat maybe for a little while. Again, once it goes on the MLS, those agents should really be giving other agents and other brokerages an opportunity to fill them. But for better or for worse, again, you can't tell whether or not it's going to skew those numbers and change, what the narrative is on how long it would have taken to fill that if they were, in fact, had maybe the systems and processes to dial that in. The rental market, the rental process here in the Phoenix area is, in fact, it's still the wild, wild west. There's nothing standardized by the way that we process applications from one brokerage to the next. There's no standardization from whether or not we answer our phones. There's no standardization from how we market these. Sometimes you'll see photos in the MLS. One thing to check out, if you see a date on the bottom of the picture that says like 2019 or 2020, let me tell you, like that means that the photos are dated And oftentimes, if they're 5 years old, 7 years old, these photos, it's going to affect like whether or not people are going to want to see that property right away. It's almost like a bait and switch. You don't know what you don't know. If you're a tenant and these property pictures are 7 years old, like, is that property really going to look the same? Like, probably not. So again, just information and something that we look at. I hope that's helpful. Now, to pivot really quickly, I wanted to give you guys some quick feedback on what the market's doing. December, obviously, it's been a very slow month on the sales side. Looking at what the market has done overall, the last 6 months, prices have really dropped in Phoenix as a whole. And there's one community in all of, I'd say, the Phoenix metro area that in the last 6 months actually went up. And it's Gold Canyon. I would never have guessed that. But I guess when you think about it, it's kind of, Gold Canyon is more of a snowbird community. People come here and live there in the wintertime. So that seems like the prices would have, been more attractive. Plus, a lot of buyers are more on the cash side than having to do anything when it comes to financing. The rest, unfortunately, are all in the negative. And for the big loser, good grief, Litchfield Park, 21% down in the last 6 months. In the last year, it has gone down 16% in the last 12 months. So whereas most of the other major areas were jamming for 6 months of this year, and then they dropped off, Litchfield, for it to be down 21%, so that's a delta like 5%. So they were only 5% when 6 months, I don't know, that's interesting. Cool. I hope this information helps. I hope you have an amazing weekend. We've got a lot of stuff going on here behind the scenes. We've got a new website. If you haven't seen that, definitely check it on. All the links aren't working yet, but the narrative and what it talks about is definitely a lot more us than it's been in the past. That's our website, capstonerealtypros.com. You're going to find that we've got a new search tool on there, which we found has been significantly more helpful to our clients than the one we were using in the past. So we're excited about rolling that one out as well. We've got some in-house changes that are happening. This has been honestly the busiest December behind the scenes that we've ever had. I think it's usually because we're still so in the weeds with transactions and things happening. But this time we were really able to knock out some of these big rocks that we've been working on. So let's see what happens going into this next year. We are exceptionally hopeful. We are definitely feeling blessed to have as much management business as we do. We're looking to take on a lot more next year. And we are so happy that you have chosen Capstone and that you continue to choose Capstone, giving us your feedback and letting us know the things that keep us and the business motivated to continue to run in this market. Thank you so much. Have an amazing weekend. Look forward to seeing you next week. See ya.